Morning everybody, welcome back and happy Friday. Now, at the beginning of this year, we spoke a lot about habits, and today I want to return to that discussion, and we're going to talk about why you might actually want to consider studying less in the beginning when picking up a new language. Now you might be thinking, what do I mean you might want to study less? I mean, languages take an enormous amount of time, it's a lifelong journey, so surely the more time you can spend on it in the beginning, the better, right? Well, according to habit formation research, the most important thing in building a new habit is actually not the amount of time you spent doing something in one single sitting. Now, what is far more important and more effective in building a habit is actually how many times you've done something and the frequency at which you did it given a certain period of time. And so it's actually far more helpful to study a language for 15 minutes every single day for a month rather than studying for 5 hours once a week on a Saturday. And so given that language learning is really a long-term endeavor and it's something that to succeed, you really want to make that a long-standing habit that's really cemented well into your daily life. And so for that to happen, the best strategy is to do whatever you can to make it most likely that you're going to engage in studying that language most often, ideally on a daily basis. Now, the reason why I think this is really important to bring up is that very often when we first start learning a new language, and this could be if it's your very first foreign language, or it could also be if you're adding a third or a fourth, it doesn't really matter. But we get really excited, we shoot for the stars, and we say, okay, I'm gonna study for 1 or even 2 or maybe even 3 hours a day. And we create these very elaborate study plans and these strategies. And so what happens is that it almost makes it feel very stressful if we're not able to keep up with that, because we sit down and we say, oh, I've only got 30 minutes, but I plan to do all these things, and how am I going to possibly make time for my listening and my reading and my app and the second app? And so then what happens is it ends up waiting until the next day and then the next day. And then maybe finally on the weekend you say, okay, cool, I'm going to do like a 5-hour session. I'm going to just do all the studying that I meant to do this whole week. And again, in terms of really forming a strong, solid habit, this is where things can start to slip. Whereas if you take the approach of, okay, I'm just starting out, I'm going to take my time, I'm just going to do 30 minutes per day, maybe even 1 hour per day. Whatever is a very realistic time frame for you. The point is, like I said, you want to make it as likely as possible that you're going to do this every single day, and that way you're going to form a strong habit. Now, once you've formed a really strong habit with this activity, it's going to be a lot easier because you're going to know sort of like what are the constraints in your schedule, when does it work best, what are the things that worked really well. And at that point, it's much easier to expand the scope of this habit and the amount of time you're going to spend doing it every day. And like I said, ultimately, that's what's going to lead you to success learning a new language or really any new skill. Now, you might think this sounds like advice for somebody learning their very first language, but I want to reiterate, this is actually even more important for people who are polyglots or learning several foreign languages, because very often the tendency is that we start learning a new language and we get really excited, we shoot for the stars, but we also have those other languages and those other habits to uphold, and so sometimes that can end up being very disruptive to your overall system, and again, it becomes a bit of a mess and it can have a detrimental effect on all your languages. Now, recently on day 24 of my daily language diary series, I did outline my 3-tier prioritized rotation system, and that's one of many different systems that I use so that before I start a new language, I can really make sure that I figure out how is this language going to fit into my overall system of habits, and how can I be successful in sticking to that long enough to really form a strong, healthful, positive language learning habit. So just to recap, the main idea here is that when you're starting a new language, the most important thing for long-term success is to build a healthy habit around learning that language. We talked about how habit formation research has shown that studying for 5 hours once a week is a lot less effective in building a habit versus studying for 30 minutes every single day, because frequency and the amount of times you do something is far more important for building habits. So a good strategy is to think about what's a very reasonable amount of time that makes you very likely to stick to that goal that you have every single day. And once you have formed a great great habit, let's say after 1 month or even 2 months or 3 months, well, that initial period of time will give you lots of opportunities to see what works well with your schedule, what will help you succeed, and then you can always increase the amount of time you study every day and how ambitious you are with the activities that you do. Okay, everybody, I hope that was helpful. Of course, as always, I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying these videos, then please do give me a like, leave a comment, and subscribe because it makes me happy. I wish you all a very nice weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday for another amazing episode.